Hi, this is Lara at Elliott Wave Gold with your daily analysis for Wednesday 30th of April, recording the video 10 minutes to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I was expecting more choppy overlapping sideways movement. I was expecting it to trend slightly higher. It's still range bound, the movement is very choppy and overlapping, but we got a slight new low below the invalidation point on the hourly chart. Overall, the wave count's actually mostly the same. That invalidation point was prematurely set. I'm still expecting gold to remain range-bound for another 1 or still possibly 2 days at the most. When it breaks out, it should break out to the downside, but we're not there yet. Let's have a look at the daily chart, which expects that primary wave 4 is an incomplete double combination. The first structure in the combination was a zigzag, so the second structure in the double beginning here is most likely to be a flat correction. It may have also been a triangle, but with possibly 2 multiples unfolding, we can rule that out. Intermediate wave Y is subdividing as a flat, which subdivides 3, 3, 5. It should end about the same level as intermediate wave W because the purpose of combinations is to take up time and move price sideways. So eventually I'll expect it to reach up to about 1434. Primary wave 4 may not move into primary wave 1 price territory above 1532.90. Within a flat correction, the A wave subdivides as a 3, the B wave also must be a 3, and it must reach a minimum 90% the length of A. This wave count requires movement to 1201.98 or below. If intermediate wave Y is an expanded flat, then minor wave B down may make a new low beyond the start of A, so we could see a new low below 1180. That's actually reasonably likely. Minor wave B down at this stage is most likely unfolding as a double zigzag. From this high to this low we have a perfect 535 zigzag structure. The double is joined by a completed 3 in the opposite direction, and here we have the second zigzag in the double subdividing 5, 3, 5. The B wave within it is incomplete. Despite being very time consuming, the structure just doesn't fit as a completed corrective structure. We may be seeing alternation between minute waves W and Y. Within W, A and C are somewhat close to equality. Within Y, we may see a 1.618 or 2.618 ratio between its A and C waves. That's what happened here. Here's a good example of a double zigzag. A and C here are somewhat close to equality, and here they have a 1.618 ratio. Let's have a look at the main hourly wave count where the X wave ends here, and this is where the Y wave begins. It has to subdivide as a 5, 3, 5 zigzag, and within it the B wave may not move beyond the start of the A wave above 1331.29. Minuet wave B is still most likely incomplete, and it's subdividing what looks like an expanded flat correction. Its A wave is a 3, its B wave is a 3. This is a 157% correction of subminuet A, and the C wave is extremely unlikely to be over here because this doesn't subdivide well as a 5 and it hasn't moved beyond the end of A. So minuet wave B is likely to be incomplete, and the C wave is unfolding as either an impulse or an ending diagonal. It's most likely an ending diagonal because this first wave up here subdivides so nicely as a 3 and it really doesn't fit very well at all as a 5. Within an ending diagonal, all of the subwaves may only be single zigzag structures. So we have a zigzag for 1, a zigzag for 2 moved a bit lower. My invalidation point here was premature. The B wave here is a 335 expanded flat, and the C wave ends beyond the end of the A wave. Microwave 2, if it were to continue any further, which is now even more unlikely, it can't move beyond the start of 1 below 1268.62. So we need to see a zigzag up for the third wave, which has to move beyond the end of the first, and then a zigzag down for the fourth wave, which should overlap back into first wave price territory, and finally a little zigzag up for the final fifth wave, to take subminuet wave C at least slightly or somewhat beyond the end of A above 1307.19 to avoid a truncation. So overall, still choppy, overlapping sideways and slightly trending higher movement for another 1 or still possibly 2 more days. I've looked at all the structural possibilities here within Minuet Wave B to see, could it be complete here or here or here? Could it possibly be over? And this is what I've come up with today. This is what one of our members suggested. So I've had a really good look at the subdivisions and they actually all fit. But the problem with this idea is it just doesn't have the right look for a running contracting triangle. On the daily chart within minor wave A up, there is a little minuet degree running contracting triangle. It's an absolutely perfect example, and the structures for gold do tend to have a really typical look. This looks all wrong, so I expect it has an extremely low probability. I've considered all the structural possibilities for this B wave and tried to see if any of those possibilities could be complete here, here, or here. It could possibly be a running flat, but the subdivisions don't fit, and that would be an extremely unusual running flat over here because the B wave is so deep in relation to the A wave. That's what I looked at yesterday. Today I've looked at the possibility that we could label it W, X, and Y, complete either here, here, or here. That just doesn't fit either. And so now I'm also considering the possibility that it could be a triangle. For a contracting triangle, the AC trend line should have a clear downward slope. This BD trend line has a nice clear slope, but the AC trend line is flat. C has managed to end slightly before the end of A, so the rules aren't breached, but it just doesn't have the right look. This is extremely unusual, so unusual for gold that I would prefer to discard this idea. I publish it today only to point out to you that it's most likely that the B wave is not over, because I just can't see it over here, here, or here. None of those ideas have the right fit. If we were to suddenly see movement below 1268.62 and the main hourly wave count invalidated, then I would consider this idea or a variation of it. But while price remains above that point, I will expect more choppy, overlapping upward movement. This is the alternate wave count, which moves the degree of labelling here down 1 degree to look at the possibility that minute wave X is incomplete. This has a lower probability because minute wave X would now be out of proportion to minute wave W. X waves within double zigzags are usually relatively shallow and relatively brief. This one is remarkably shallow and brief, but they do tend to be shallow and brief. So this idea has a lower probability. This high up here is this point up here. We still have a 3, 3, we're still looking at a 5 wave ending diagonal unfolding upward. So the structure here is the same, but for this idea, the ending diagonal would most likely be expanding. If we see movement above 1331.29, this alternate would be correct. At 1355, the C wave would reach 1.618, the length of the A wave. That's all for me today with your gold analysis, and I hope that all our members are having a most fabulous day.